Hello, we're going to get started in about 1 minute. So if you need to, we have 2 chairs over here. We'll move our stuff for you. Okay, I want to welcome you to our presentation, Assistive Technology and Innovation Learning and Disabilities. And before we get started, we want to just thank you so much for this experience and being in your country. We've had an incredible time. And we, first of all, would just like to know who our audience is. We are teachers, so do we have teachers in here? Anyone a teacher? Administrator of a school? In hospitals. Oh, wonderful. So we will get started soon. Just to kind of give you a background a little bit, we basically are sharing with you technology we use to help our kids with learning disabilities who struggle with learning. And we've done a lot. We've experimented a lot with a bunch of different applications. So we've tried to provide you the best. And we have so many more that we don't have in here, but we had to limit what we could give you. So feel free to ask us questions afterwards, but we are ready to get started. Thank you.
I don't know. I'm not sure how Janioree and I are going to do this since I'm so short with the microphone and she is so tall, so you'll just have to be patient. But we did send off for some pencils, so they should be coming. So I'm Kresty Koubek, and of course this is Janioree Reed, and we teach at the Fletcher School, which is a school for kids with learning disabilities like ADHD, dyslexia, auditory processing. And our school has about 270 kids. It's kindergarten to 12th grade. And we are literacy teachers. We are trained to teach in a multi-sensory instruction. And about 5 years ago, our school got laptops and iPads for every student. So we had a lot of training in using technology. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. So we had a lot of training in using technology with the students, and we just fell in love. So that's what we want to share with you guys today, is what we've seen that is really effective with the students with learning disabilities. So I just want to share a little bit of my story about dyslexia, and then Janioree will do the same. We'll do the same. We have dyslexia. We both have dyslexia in our families. My brother was diagnosed when he was about 6 years old, and I can remember him crying and crying because he could not read, yet he was very intelligent in math and science, very athletic, played soccer through college, and so he had all of these skills, but he could not read. So once I started teaching, I just had a passion for those kids that struggled. So that's where we ended up where we are today. So
this is going to be difficult. Sorry. I basically have a passion for helping kids with learning disabilities because I have 2 children, and both of them have a learning disability. My daughter, at the age of 5, even before that, as a mom, I am a teacher, so I would try to teach her the alphabet, and she could never get it. And we would play games, we would sing songs, anything I could get to help her learn this alphabet, and yet she still could not get it. And then when she was in preschool, her teachers were like, she's just not figuring things out, and she was slow figuring things out. So I just thought, okay, I have a daughter who's going to struggle with learning, and I think she's just really slow learner. Then I have a son who, I don't know if you do this here, but when he was little, we have harnesses we can put in our kids so that they wouldn't run away. And we would have to do that because he was so hyper that he could not stay with us. He would just run away. So as a mom, you're like, I'm a horrible mom. What am I doing wrong? And if I took him somewhere, sometimes people give your children back to you and they're like, they're such a good child. I never got that. I got, here's your kid. So, and Mackenzie, my daughter's completely opposite. She's so calm and she listens and she's not distracting in the classroom. But she has dyslexia, and my son is ADD. And in America, we can actually test percentage of ADD, and it's like 1 to 100. And so this past year, he's now 20, and he's in college, and he plays football. And that really gets his aggression out, that ability to tackle and touch. And right before he graduated, though, his high school teacher is like, I think you need to get him back on his medicine. And I'm like, wow, I thought maybe we didn't have to. But she set him at her desk, and he would literally fidget with her lamp. Like, he's a big kid, and he'd fidget, and he broke it. She's like, you got to get him back on. And then I got him tested, and it's funny because you get used to your child. Like, your child is your child, so it's easy to not maybe see what other people are seeing. So we've been lucky enough to have people be really honest with us. And so he basically tested in the 98 percentile, which means only 2% are less hyper than him. And this is at the age of 18. So he's always been very energetic, and we joke, like he drives and he can't pay attention. He goes this way and that way. And it's just, so both of my kids have led me into an education of helping kids with these learning disabilities and to not judge them and know that they can achieve even more than the average person because they are not average. So that is what led me to teaching at the Fletcher School. At first, I just want to talk about how we diagnose learning disabilities in America and in our school. At our school, you have to have a diagnosed learning disability, which means that you have to go to a psych evaluation, and they do a multitude of tests to determine what is your learning disability. And we've sort of broke it down into 4 subject areas. We have dyslexia, which is the reading disability, spelling. Dysgraphia is handwriting. ADHD, which is the hyperactivity, the inattentiveness, and then dyscalculia, which is a math disability. At the Fletcher School, we have about 270 students, K through 12th grade, and they all have to have a diagnosis. And it doesn't mean you just have dyslexia. You might have all 4, or you might have just 1. But then we go in and we try to be really descriptive on what kind of education we give each child so that they can be helped in the classroom. We use a multi-sensory approach to learning, which means our kids are not sitting in chairs all day long. They're moving. They use all 5 senses. They touch, they talk, they hear, they're moving around because they can't stay in one location. So they're always moving. And through this, and it's not just at one time, we're doing all 5 senses. Well, it is at one time, all together. They're using them all together. And the one thing that we realized out of all of our kids is not just one child in the years that I've taught there looks like any other child. They all are different, and their disabilities look different. I'm going to show a video that just kind of shows you a little bit about our school and what it has to offer.
At the Fletcher School, our multimodal learning is transformed with Apple technology. Our school serves students with dyslexia and other specific learning disabilities.
Okay, so you can see we use technology, but we also use multisensory education. And I just wanted to tell you that our ratio of students, we have 1 teacher for 6 kids. So it might be 6, it might be 5, but it's never more than 6. So they get that individual attention that they need, and they also get that constant prompting. When you see a child who's not paying attention, you can touch them and get them back. So we definitely have small numbers, which also makes it so successful. Here is one of the types of tests that are given to our students. It's called the Wessler Intelligence Scale, and it's also abbreviated to WISC-5. So if we see this in a child, once we get their IQ, we can pretty much understand a little bit of what their disability is. So this determines how intelligent they're supposed to be. So there are 5 subgroups. And this is a child that we have at school. They have a full scale IQ of 106, which means that it's average. And I would say the majority of our kids have sort of in that range. Of course, we have a child this year has like 136, right? But he cannot read or write. He's so smart. It's just like you're amazed every time. But then most of them, I would have to say, come from families that give them experiences, so their verbal is amazing. They know how to speak and they know how to talk. And then they are very logical thinkers, so they think critically. But the area that is the part that breaks a child down and that usually gets them to Fletcher is working memory, which means that you can teach something to them over and over and over again, and they cannot remember it. So you don't give up. You just keep teaching it over and over again. And then the other one is process speed. They're really slow at coming up with an answer, slow at reading. Everything is so slow. So when you see that both of those scores are lower than the others, you're like, there's something there. Also, in America, in order to be considered having a learning disability, you have to have a 15-point discrepancy between any of those subtests. So his processing speed is 86. His verbal comprehension is 116. So there's a gap. And all of our kids at our school have to have at least an average or above average IQ, so they have to be able to show that they can learn and show growth. And then they also have to have that 15-point discrepancy somewhere. We don't take kids with autism, but if they are diagnosed once they're there and they're successful, they stay. And it's so hard, to say that we call it the spectrum, and it's so long that, of course, we have kids that have some Asperger's or autism, but that is not what's keeping them from learning. Like, they're capable of learning. So we do have kids in that population as well. Here's a chart, and we have this full chart that has been created that just sort of helps us know how to help the kids. So in the last IQ that I showed you, the young boy had a hard time with processing speed. So what we'll go in is we'll look at his scores and we'll say, okay, his weaknesses, what is it that he struggles with? That working memory, flexibility, so many different things. Usually the weaknesses that are on the chart are the ones we see in the child. And then we're able to go in and say, what can we do to help this child? What are the strategies that we use? So we basically, at the beginning of the year, look at their testing and go in and we think about what kind of lessons we're going to provide to that child. So for a child that has processing speed issues, if they need color coding, then the type of work we give them is going to have color. We give graphic organizers to break down their ideas and keep them structured. Larger print. If that child needs larger print, his paper is going to look completely different than another child's. And limit the type of information so that if every other child might get 10 questions, you only give that one 3. So we will basically be prescriptive for every child in our classroom. So that chart just really helps us know and make sure we're being held accountable for how we're teaching them. And Kiristy's going to talk about some aspects of dyslexia.
Okay, so dyslexia, put simply, is just the ability to have an IQ in a normal range and then not be able to read, write, or to struggle with it. So just like that gap that Janiori was talking about. Dyslexia can look like having trouble figuring out the words and decoding it. It can look like knowing how to decode the words but don't understand anything that you're reading. It can look like trouble spelling. It can look like a lot of different things, and I have several members in my family, and it is all different. It is estimated that in America there's about 40 million people with dyslexia, but only 2 million know that they have dyslexia. So they have not been diagnosed, and they don't realize their potential, their full potential. There are tons of people like Albert Einstein that are brilliant but struggled to read, struggled with ADHD, and that kind of thing. So we just want to recognize their potential. So here are going to be some of the characteristics that I just talked about. Decoding words is a process of manipulating sounds. So that is very, very difficult for kids with dyslexia. Sometimes they can't make inferences when they read, so they can read through everything but not gain meaning. Now, the opposite of that is to really struggle decoding and put so much into decoding that you can't remember anything. But we've also seen students that read, it may take them 4 minutes to read a short paragraph, and they understand all of it. And I'm like, how did you do that? Because I lost focus during that too. But they are looking at the bigger picture of things, so they really do understand what they're reading, and that is amazing. So you want to play on those strengths all of the time, but while you're building the weaknesses at the same time. Auditory processing. Are you guys familiar with auditory processing? It is part of dyslexia. It's the sounds and the way that we process sounds. So manipulating sounds, turning a word from cat, bat, catfish, those things are very hard to manipulate for kids with dyslexia. So they need a lot of remediation with that, a lot of individual practice. And then visual processing is the same thing. It's just what we see. The seeing takes a different pathway through the brain. It takes longer and gets jumbled up during that. So accessibility. Is anybody familiar with accessibility? Yeah. So these are built-in features in your iPad that we use often. And so I'm just going to go through a couple of those. Speech selection, everyone kind of uses that, but sometimes we forget about it with the little kids and how it can help people with dyslexia. Speak selection is highlighting text on your laptop or your iPad, and it will read to you. You can look up a definition of one word. You can highlight a whole entire paragraph. I'm going to show a short video of January's daughter showing you how to use speech selection.
Fire is a short story by Jack London. It is one that you can read online and find online. Here, for accessibility, it is already on your computer. You don't have to download anything, it's already there. You just have to highlight something, double click it, speech, start speaking, and it will start speaking to you.
Man turned aside from the main Yukon Trail. He
And
climbed higher.
then stop speaking. So it's a very easy tool to use whenever you need to read something, and it's already on your computer, and there's no hassle.
Okay, so that is kind of one thing that everyone knows and that's in there, but we don't always teach the kids to use it. And what it does when the iPad or computer is reading to you, it allows them who read really, really slowly to be focused on the higher order thinking. And also, like Mackenzie, her daughter is 16 years old, so she could be taking a really, really long time while she sees all of her friends and classmates finishing. So she can easily put her headphones on, hear that being read, and then complete her assignment the same amount of time and not feel like she's so much slower than everyone else. So speak screen is almost the same thing, except it is done by a gesture. And so like on the iPad, you have to use 2 fingers to pull down, and then it reads the whole entire screen. So you don't highlight for this. It's just going to read everything that's on there. You can adjust speed. So it's really important the turtle goes really slow and the rabbit goes really fast. And that's really important for kids with auditory processing because they can adjust it however they need to. We use dictation, and January is going to show you some slides on that.
Okay, dictation is another tool in accessibility that's on your devices. This is a speech to text where words appear on the screen to help with talking and spelling. So I'm going to show you a video of a student that I have, and his name's Cannon. He came to us at the middle, so I teach 3rd grade. He came to us in December, and he was in a very hard academic school, and his mom and dad were just, and still are, in complete denial that he has a learning disability, but they still came. But they really have been in denial. So, but he's so intelligent, he's so smart, and he's so verbal. And so he came to us, but he's dysgraphic. So writing for him physically is so hard, as well as just getting what's in his head out on paper. So the process of the thought and then getting it on paper are completely different. He also has dyslexia. The spelling is hard. So he has amazing ideas in his writing, but he has to focus so much on the spelling that he can't get it out, on top of the fact that he doesn't grip his pencil correctly. And on top of that, the ideas and the vocabulary that are up here are so massive, he can't get it out. So when he came to us, I said, we worked on writing a paragraph. And our school, we call it scaffolding. When you teach here. And you think you start here, but sometimes you no, it's even lower than that. But you don't know that until the kid has a difficulty. So we brainstormed for a paragraph, and I gave him a graphic organizer, which we'll talk about, are really good for kids to think of what they need to write. But in every section, he only wrote one word. So he has to write a paragraph, which is 6 sentences, and he's only given me 6 words. Not even sentences. So I just said, Canon, we're going to use dictation. And I don't want you to even look. I want you to look at me and just tell me about what you're going to write about. So I'm going to let you watch the video so you can see what he did. Okay, just explain what double dribble is and then record yourself. So press record and just tell me, look at me and tell me what double dribble is. No, keep that on. You can keep it on. Just keep the microphone on. Okay, tell me.
If you double dribble, the ball will turn over to the other team.
And what does double dribble look like?
If you pound the ball with 2 hands.
Oh, good. Okay, stop. See how perfect I was? That's your detail.
So can I delete that part?
You will when you get ready. And he gets totally fixated on what he shouldn't, but that's typical.
If you foul someone else, they get 2 shots.
And what does the foul look like? What is a foul?
Like if you hit someone.
How do you hit them?
Like, hit them in the back, or if they go up to do layup, you hit them in the, like you stick out your arm.
Okay. What is jump ball in basketball?
To start the game, the ref will hold the ball up, and then he'll do 1, 2, 3, and then let go of the ball. And you have to get the ball, and once you get the ball, you can go and pass your teammate or shoot.
Okay, so unfortunately our sound is not so great in the video, but so basically Canon, and I did have to prompt him, to retrieve some of the things that are in his mind, but that's okay at first. And also you can see one thing I didn't mention, executive functioning. Literally, that child will stand and look at you and do absolutely nothing. And it's not because he doesn't want to. He's the sweetest young man ever. He wants to please. He physically can't do. Like, you'll tell him to put a pencil in his hand, he'll do it, and then he'll wait. Okay, put it on the paper, he'll do it, but then nothing else. So it's a consistent prompting. And of course we have strategies, but at first when he came, it's like, you got to figure that out. But he was so verbal in the way he explained it that those simple sentences became his paragraph, and he was so descriptive. And of course he was a little obsessed with the iPad. But the beauty of it is that he does like to play. He's ADD too. So then he was playing with it one day and lost it. He deleted it. And he's like, Miss Reed, I don't have it anymore. I'm like, well, okay, let's do it again. And he's like, no. I'm like, yay. But the amazing thing is, when he did this, he actually read it as it was texting it to him. And then he also heard himself say it, that he didn't even realize it, that even though he deleted it, he remembered it and he wrote it out. So it was just seeing it and hearing it and doing it, and all those modalities really did help him. So I was just really proud of him, and he was proud of himself. Here is another video of a young boy. Before I show it to you, I'll tell you, because here if we press, the video starts, but I want to share a little bit about Malcolm. Malcolm is on the spectrum. He has a little bit of Asperger's, and it's the same type of technology, and again, it's a different type of child. He is not verbal. Cannon is very verbal, and he'll talk to you. Malcolm will maybe say one word to you all day long, and it'll be the same one over and over again. So if you prompt him like I prompt Cannon, he'll give you one word, and he'll just keep using the same word over and over again. So his teacher this year started using Clips, and it's an app on Apple, and it's like a movie maker. So they're allowed to create a little movie as they use the app. So he read a story in class, and for Malcolm to even remember what he read is a struggle, but he remembers, he just doesn't know how to express it. So on Clips, he was able to create an image about the story that he read, but when you dictate into Clips, the moment you dictate, the language comes up. So you can see what you're saying as it's coming up in front of you. So not only did the visual imagery help him tell the story, but also seeing the text help him to see words spelled correctly, helped him to maybe help with his fluency, because it comes up in a very easy, normal range. But I'll show you his video and what he was able to explain after using Clips.
The Poet's Dog by Malcolm. In this picture, you can see Sylvan and Teddy's cabin. Sylvan got sick and died, so Teddy struggled with the loss of Sylvan, which is a man versus self-conflict. Teddy was round in the story because he changed.
6 months later, Ellie came in her little red car. They got in the car and she drove them to Sylvan's house. They all stayed friends and they lived happily ever after. Theme: friends help each other through good and bad times.
Okay, so as you can see, and I know the struggle too will be able to get text in Arabic, but you can still use Clips and they can just record their voice in Clips, but they love it because they can create their own images. It has music. It also makes features look like they're cartoon characters, so they really like to explore it. And unfortunately, you can't go back, but we have a joke about Malcolm. So if you saw his video, like he did the Poet's Dog. I don't think we can go back to it. I don't want to mess anything up. Let's see. Okay, so it's supposed to be apostrophe S instead of comma S. So, it's that dyslexic Brian. And we teach this every year 100 million times. But still, it's a comma with an S. And then he didn't capitalize dog because you're supposed to do that in titles. But we're just proud that the D isn't a B. because that's a big America thing. The B and the D gets reversed all the time. So, you know, we have to be real about our kids and what they do. But the fact that he made that amazing verbal story is not even the point. This is not as important as the details he gave from the summary. So just wanted to share that. Okay. And then Kiristy's going to tell you about a little assistive touch.
So this is the last of the accessibility features that we're going to be talking about today. But in order to use the iPad or iPhone, but mostly I'm talking about the iPad, you have to use a lot of gestures. So like speak selection, you have to pull down with 2 fingers. There you can swipe up with 5 to close the app. You swipe with 3 fingers to go between open app and open app. There's double taps. There are triple taps that do different things. So you have to know a lot of gestures to like be able to use this device fluently and effectively. So assistive touch helps kids with, or anyone with, weak motor skills to be able to get these gestures or to be able to do it without the gestures. So that it is a non-invasive little tiny button that you change a setting for, and it will move around the screen so that it's not in the way. And it really, really helps for the kids. So like my kids were not using speak screen because they could not pull down because it's so hard. I could only do it 50% of the time, so they could do it about 20% of the time, and it was pure luck when we actually got it down. So Apple changed it, and they made it so you can still pull down if you can do that. If not, you can tap on assistive touch, and then you can tap on the button to put it in there. And it has default features. And these are some of the default features that are already on there, like multitasking. You have to pull down for notifications. You pull up. Instead, you can just tap this. So one of the things, taking a screenshot for the kids is really hard because they have these protective devices, you know, and so they wouldn't do it. So we could put screenshots on there. Now we use those all the time because they can do it. So it really opens up a lot more easily effective ways to use the iPad and all the features that are in it. Janiuary talked a little bit about large print and how important that is with kids with any kind of vision issue or visual processing. So my kids will naturally zoom in like this with the iPad, but there's tons of settings within accessibility that magnify, change the contrast, just do different things that even in iBooks alone, they will make the font what they want it, what's good for them. Not what's good for you, but what's good for them. So it's really helpful. Read and Write has some of those features too that Janiuary is going to explain.
Okay, Read and Write is a free app where basically it will take almost any kind of document, PDF, and it will read it to you. So you can go in, you can highlight, and it actually uses a multitude of different colors. So it helps kids with tracking issues. But basically, my daughter likes to use this one. As Kiristyy said, she decodes. Her reading is so slow, but yet her comprehension is incredible. So when she's in the classroom, and I didn't say that, she was at Fletcher for 8 years, and this is her first year going out into a normal classroom setting. And she, in America, we give A's, and she made the honor list. She's like cum laude. She had honor roll the first time. And then she actually is going to be doing honors classes next year. So she is proof that if taught correctly, you can be even more than average. So in class, it's hard for her to be able to read as fast as everyone else. So if her teacher's like, you need to read this short story in 15 minutes, she's going to be like not able to do it. So she can put on her earphones and just use Read and Write and then hear the story. So the point was to read for comprehension, not read for fluency. And that is so important as an educator. What is it that you're trying to get out of your child? And then try to pull that out. The point wasn't to read beautiful and quick. It was about understanding the story. So I'm going to show the video of her using Read and Write.
So today I'm going to teach you all about Read and Write. Read and Write is a simple tool that you can download on Google Chrome, and it pops up right here. When you click it, it shows you a bar of different things that you can use. So, for example, there is highlighting. So you can easily highlight something, and if you want to unhighlight it, you click this button. You can also have it start reading to you. Make it pause and then stop it. Also, if you want to read along, there's a screen mask. So let's say you just want to follow along a certain way and it's hard for you to follow while reading, this can help you. You can also, when you highlight something, you can have an image for it. So picture dictionary, and it pops up with a bunch of different pictures that could help you. You can also have translation. So little, you can say in different languages. So let's say you read this and it's for a project, right? You highlight important information. Well, once you've highlighted everything you need to highlight, you can go on collect highlights and you choose whatever highlights you want. If you want just yellow highlights, you can choose that. You hit OK, and it says that a new document was made. So now you have your highlights, where it came from, a link to it, and your email. And also, you want to have vocabulary. It will take you to a vocabulary list, and you can put in different things for a vocabulary list from what you've read. So you can also do simplified page. This will take whatever you're reading and it will simplify it for you to make it easier for you to read. So pretty much Read and Write is a great tool to use for pretty much about anything school related, maybe even with yourself. I definitely would suggest using it.
And I called it an app. It's not. It's a Chrome-based program, so you can just download it. You can't download it on iPads, but you can on your laptop. But, you know, the hard thing, again, is if it will read in Arabic. But the beauty is, even if you put a story on your computer for them, even if you wanted them to just take parts of that story out, key ideas, you can still do that and it'll put it in a document. So a child that maybe struggles with writing can then just click and put important information onto the side, and they can change the color. Like red can be the important word, and then other colors can mean something else. So it's really helpful. Another great app, this is an app, but it does cost money. It's not free. It's called Voice Dream Reader. It's a little bit more advanced text to speech. It does have 186 voices in 30 languages, and Arabic is one of them. So, but it's kind of expensive. It's like $20. But if you have a child that's struggling, it's definitely worth looking into. But Voice Dreamer, some of the differences I'll show you in this image. It doesn't show up as well for you, but on our computer, the white background is actually softened to a more creamy color. So sometimes that white on a page is really glaring. So it will change the color of the background, and where the first Read and Write would only maybe highlight sentences, this one will actually highlight each word as it reads. So there's some differences, and it's one that a lot of people like to use, but it can, it's expensive. And so Kresty is going to tell you about our most favorite app, and you have to try it, please, because we love it.
Yes. If this is the one that you want to take away, this is our favorite. If you take away anything, use this and try to learn it. I mean, I will say that it does require a bit of a learning curve, and there's a lot of tutorials out there to help. And you could email us and we'd be happy to help you too. But it does take a little bit to learn how to use it. But once you and your students learn how to use it, it is amazing. It is basically a blank screen, and you can innovate anything that you want from it. So this is an example of what the screen looks like. This is a math assignment. When I first started using Explain Everything, I basically made worksheets come to life. So you can make them move around, you can record sound in that, and it just makes it a lot more fun to practice this skill. So this assignment, well, you can see first, up and down the side, there's a lot of different options. We won't go over each one of them, but there's different colors, shapes, all kinds of things in there that you can use. Pull in pictures, and at the bottom are recording options that you can use. So this assignment that the math teacher did is counting by sevens. So the fish will move around as the student is saying 7, 14, 21. That's as far as I can go with that. But they record that, and so you know how they're thinking as they're moving the objects around. It's really cool. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples of 2 ways to do the same skill and Explain Everything, because kids need a lot of practice and rehearsal with things. So this is 2 ways to do the same thing. The first video is one of January's students, and January made some shapes, some objects, and hid words behind it. And the student will pull out 2 different spelling options and have to decide which one is correct.
Staple. Staple is the right one. Plain P is the right one. Scribble. Scribble. Scribble is the right spelling. Bottle. Bottle or bottle. Bottle is the correct spelling. Bugle. Bugle or bugle. Bugle is the right spelling. So 1 G is the right spelling. Apple or apple. Apple is the right spelling. Cable or cable is the right one. Trifle.
Okay, so we won't go through, you get the idea, but she did not get all of those correct. So it really helps you to know what she needs to practice on. Where if you were just doing this on paper on a worksheet, you would see that she got them all wrong, but you wouldn't see how she was thinking while she was doing it. So it's a really valuable for student reflection, but also for teachers to be able to plan your next move with the student is very helpful. So this next video that I'm going to show is the same skill, the same spelling pattern, and we did it, I put out objects around the room, and the students took pictures of them with their iPads, and they made them talk using an app that I'll tell you about after it's over. And they made them talk, and then they put that into Explain Everything to be able to divide the word into syllables. So I'll show you, then we'll talk about it a little bit more. It's cute.
Hello, I am a bottle. The first syllable is bot, then tool. Bottle. Hello, I am a apple. The first syllable is app, then all. Apple. Hello, I have bubbles in me. The first syllable is bub, then Bowl, bubble. Hello, I am a table. The first syllable is ta, then b, table.
Hey guys, let's try to spell some consonant LE words. Ready? Can you spell the word apple? Now try to spell table. All right, let's try bubble. And last spell bottle. Okay, so you get the idea. We take pictures and put them into ChatterPix, which is one app that makes them talk, and you can use your voice. You draw the mouth on them, and you can make them talk, and then you pull that video into Explain Everything. Then you can write over top of it, record over top of it, draw. You can use Apple Pencils, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. There's a lot of different options in Explain Everything. It is really, really good. I would stress again, like the first time I did this, I was dictating those words for them to spell, and I went way too fast. And so we have this little office area where they go in to make their recordings, and they came out and they were like, Miss Koubic, it's impossible. No one could ever do that. And I was like, oh, sorry, guys. Let me do that again because it was way too fast for them. So just allow yourself some time to get to know the kids and let the kids get to know the app and let you get to know the app, because we both have messed up a lot of times and have to apologize to our kids for it. But this is a great app. So Explain Everything has updated once in 2017 and once in 2018. And I know that all of the 2018 updates are not available in Saudi Arabia, but they will be this year. So sometime in 2018, they are coming here. So I think that this app is just well worth it. And it does cost about $5. But they have new clip art features, and we have used these so often. They really help if the kids can't draw because they're just graphic. They can make really vivid pictures and backgrounds, and you can create stories or you can recreate stories from their text. So the clip art in here is really great. You could have the ability to create your own clip art. So what we did here is I put a story inside of Explain Everything for them to read and record. They created that clip art that you see at the top. There's a star with exclamation marks in it. There's question marks. There's a heart for the parts that you love. There's LOL for funny parts. So as they're reading, they can stamp these little clip arts throughout their story, and it keeps them engaged. Now, on the flip side of that, I had one kid like putting hearts all over the story, and I was like, really? You liked it when that kid threw up and was sick all day long? And so I know that he's just playing with the clip art all the way through and not really attending to the text at all. So it really helps them engage and like if they're just goofing off or whatever. So our kids, there's never a dull moment. Explain Everything collaboration. I love this. January had a kind of traumatizing experience with it, but it, again, is a learning curve. So here, they are all in the same project at the same time. So I give them a code, and for this assignment, I typed in a main idea for a paragraph. My kids cannot write a paragraph. We can get a sentence, that's it. So to be able to collaborate together so that we can all come up with a paragraph at the same time, working together, it takes so much frustration off of them. They don't have to come up with every single idea for it. So I give them a code, and they all come in here, and it's not very colorful on here, but it should be each name is a different color, and then that's the color that they write in. So January's kids got into a fight about what color they were writing in, but we just kind of, just worked through it. But I can see here, so everybody typed in a sentence, and just by looking at this, I can tell that some of my kids did not type a complete sentence. Some of them, their sentence doesn't really have to do with the main idea at all. So then after we had this helped me to know what to teach them, because if I gave them a piece of paper and said write a paragraph, I would get nothing. So I don't even know where to go when I have nothing. And I would have to prompt them so much that it would be all my paragraph instead of theirs. So this helped me get them something on their paper so I know what to teach them next. So we clearly have a lot of work to do here, but after we did that a couple of times, it strengthened their own paragraph, and they knew how to pull in their conclusion with their topic sentence, and it was really good. Some other ways to support their reading and writing is with graphic organizers, and Janiorie's going to talk about iMind maps.
Okay, and the one thing about collaboration and the beauty, and we'll talk about the app pencil, is that you can use this and they can just start writing. Like I said, my kids, we group our kids based on ability. So I have the higher kids, and they are very strong-willed, opinionated. They're almost like middle schoolers, so they have a little bit of an attitude at times, like nobody else. I love them, but everybody's like, oh, your class. But they're just a very strong-willed class. But they were more focused on the color. Like, I didn't get red, Mr. Reed. I got blue. And they were more waiting on whose color was what, like it was a big deal. So I was like, okay, this is driving me crazy. But anyway, we are going to continue to work with it. It can be a little glitchy too. Like if you're using the pencil and you're writing, it can get stuck on somebody else's work. That's the only thing. Then that got everybody frustrated. But it's worth doing. It's a great app. iMind maps. So our kids need graphic organizers because they can't write down every detail sometimes. It allows them to write down parts of words so that they can create something more elaborate later. But also, they just have such difficulty with sequencing. Like just things you would think would be normal everyday steps, they forget to write them down, or they just forgot that there was a step there. But also even grouping ideas together. So graphic organizers are really important, and we like to use iMind Map. It's free. It's colorful, and it allows you to, I'll show you an image. That didn't work because I didn't want it. So that image just shows you what it will open up to. So graphic organizers allow them to group ideas together. So there's some of the images you can use. But most importantly, they can draw. They can take a picture while they have the app open, or they can use pictures on their camera roll. So it just allows a lot of flexibility. Here's a graphic organizer one of my students worked on about a spelling rule that we did in class. And I'm showing it to you because it's his creation. But most importantly, again, we are a multi-sensory class. So the image inside is where they had to build the word. We have pool noodles, those long things that you float on, and we cut them in half. And we put words on them and slit the back, and then they'll hold on to tables. So you can build parts of a word. So we give them a basket, they build the word together, and then they'll build another word. So that's the multi-sensory using your hands. Then after that activity, they had to take pictures, and they had 2 different types of rules, and they had to choose the rule that that we were learning and find those words that fit the rule. So not only did they get the building activity, but they had to create it on their iPad, and then they had to organize the idea on their iPad. Then they had to, the beauty of it is you can smash this app again and to explain everything. So the child then took this image and put it in explain everything and recorded himself reading the words. So he got that repetition of reading the word. And then again, like you saw in the one explanation on the next page, I recorded myself, and that was, you can go and find avatars online, and your voice can be in something. And then I basically had them spell the word. So they get so many different opportunities and repetition to help them. So that's iMindMap. Here is Lucid Charts. Now, iMindMap is on an iPad, Lucid Charts on a laptop, and this is more for adult children. It's more not as colorful, but it does have color, and it's a simple graphic organizer. But the great thing about this organizer is you can collaborate with other classmates, so you can share it and you can all put things into it. So if you have a group project, they can all work together. My daughter likes to use this one, and she uses it a lot to organize her ideas when she had to write an essay in high school. So this summer, she had to write an essay over a book she read. And as I said, she also has auditory processing. She has a hard time getting her thoughts out as well, but she really is this amazing writing, and her detail is fabulous. But anyway, she had to make a comparison between a movie and a book. That's really hard to do, because do you just talk about the movie first in your paragraph and then you go to the book? How do you bring the two together and make it seem fluid? So she, in her mind, I'm like, I'm not going to do this for you. You in your mind need to think of how are you going to organize this paragraph. Of course, I gave her prompts to help her. So at the very top is her topic sentence. And then she basically, there was a death, and death makes you lose your innocence. So she said death makes the people in the story and in the book lose their innocence. I'm like, okay. So we chose color for the book to be yellow and blue for the movie, and then the squares with the arrow is give me proof in the movie where death makes you lose your innocence, and give me proof in the story. So she had to go find the text, and she put it in the next square. Now, I am verbalizing and giving her prompts, but I need to, and that's what we do. We're here to help and remediate. And then I said, now you have to bring the two together. So how are you going to do that? And so that was the hard part. And then you have to say, who cares if death makes you lose your innocence? Because when you write a paragraph, you can't just talk about what's there. You have to tell them your critical thought. So that part is really hard for a child to write about. So what I did is I did text to speech, and I said, don't look at anything, you tell me how that's true. And then she was amazing with what she came, because it's something horrible, and no child should see that, and that it will have a memory that will last in your head. I'm like, so she had it down. And so then we copied and pasted it and put it in the paragraph. And then at the end, when she was done, I made her color code everything from the book and the movie inside the paragraph, so we could see the yellow and the blue mixed together. So she could see that she has an even balance of the two, but it's not all blue up here and yellow down here. So it worked for her. And then on the side, I made her use synonyms, because when kids write, they want to use the same word over and over again. So she had to list all the options of innocence, and it's hard for death, but the innocence. And so she thought of synonyms for that, so that she, every time she saw that she was using that word over again, so I highlighted that in red. I'm like, you've got to go find a synonym for that word. And so she was able to do that. So that was just how important graphic organizers are, because kids can't just start writing. They have to get organization to their writing. And Kריsty's going to tell you about dysgraphia.
Okay, so we go back to that umbrella at the beginning when we're talking about dyslexia, and dysgraphia is part of it. And sometimes kids will just have dyslexia, just have trouble reading, and they can spell. Sometimes they have just dysgraphia. Sometimes they have both, and they overlap. So dysgraphia is trouble with writing. Writing is very difficult. It is harder than reading. You have to have a cognitive processing along with physical ability. You have to be able to express and organize your thoughts, know how to spell them, and know how to form the symbols and shapes to write them. So it's a very complicated process of what's happening in the brain. Let me go back. Hold on. right here. So it is trouble with spelling, handwriting, organizing thoughts, and retrieving thoughts. So all of that coming together is what dysgraphia is. And it is impaired with dyslexia. It's very complicated for the kids. That's why the iPad and the technology and using dictation and those graphic organizers, it takes a village. It takes a village to get all of this writing and ideas out. You have to model quite a bit. One accessory to iPad that we've been using a lot this year is the Apple Pencil. It is great. We love it for many reasons. This is just a video of January's class, who is never quiet, but you can see the sound is on in this video and they are quiet and working. My class is always quiet, hers never is. But you can see how everybody, even despite their ADHD and how hard it is for them to write with dysgraphia and dyslexia, that they are all working. And that really is what we want, is to create lessons and ability for them to be actively engaged at an independent level. So important.
Can you read it to me?
Yep, so they're just kind of
They
showing.
got into the rafts urgently. Peanut jumped on last.
Hard to hear.
Jill and Dick didn't have pals, but they had big sticks that reached to the bottom of the stream. They were having lots of fun. Peanut sat in the middle of the raft and yelped and tapped.
So you can see just that how actively engaged that they were. On this next slide is, I'm sorry the color is not very good on here, but I pulled out a little piece of the text of the story that we were reading in a book or in an app called Book Creator, and I put the main ideas kind of throughout the story on each page, and the students had to underline the action and underline the characters, and then they had to illustrate. And they loved it, but also it was great because you don't have crayons falling all over the floor, all over the place, because all of the apps that you use have access to tons of different colors, and you can customize the colors. It has options to make the lines thicker and thinner for different purposes, so it's really great. This is just another example of the use of color, and they're diagramming sentences and finding the actions and the subjects and the predicates very easily. So now we're going to go into a new section called digital storytelling, and we have several examples of what that looks like. We're going to start out with the green screen.
Okay, the green screen basically is a great way to allow a child to express themselves, especially if they have difficulty writing. And basically, we have a green screen room, and we painted the back of the wall green. But before that, that's a piece of cloth that they stood behind or in front of. It's behind them. And it looks like you're somewhere else. So you can go on to an app, and I'm going to show it to you in a minute. And then the child will be standing there, but the app will show, like, for him, maybe he's right beside a volcano and it's exploding, and he has to explain why it's exploding. So there'll be the view of a volcano exploding, and he can see that. So if he wanted to say, ooh, the lava's hot, I mean, he can, and talk there and actually kind of feel like he's there by the volcano. And we'll kind of show you the app that you use for that. But basically, it just allows a student to be so creative and to be able to do the things they wouldn't be able to do on paper. And this year we used the green screen for a paper that we did called Informative, where you have to write procedures to something. The beauty about it is we brainstormed, we wrote it, and then they got to do their how-to in front of the green screen, and then they realized, oh, I forgot a step, because they physically were not able to do it in the writing, but it's a how-to, so they had to go back and edit their paper, but they realized it there in the green screen, what they missed in their writing. So it allows you to introduce new skills, it allows you to review skills and teach you new skills. But it does take planning. We don't use it all the time. We use it some of the time, but it does take time to take your kids and film and do the things that are required, but they really do love it. TouchCast is the app that we use that provides backgrounds for green screen, and we're going to show you a video of our students who did a green screen activity in America. The TCH that goes on the end of words like match and batch, and DGE like ridge and bridge are like our worst rule, because our kids can never remember the T because it's silent, and DGE, you might as well give it up because it just doesn't make sense. They want to put a J or a G. So we were like, we've got to think of one more way to help them remember the rule. So we had our kids, we wrote a script. We did it really quick, and we thought there's no way they're going to remember these scripts. We were gone for a break, and they all came back. They're like, we've memorized everything, and my parents have worked with. They were so excited to do it. So we went in, and I had all girls, and they did like a talk show host, like we in America have these women that talk at a table, and they drink coffee. So they had their coffee cups, and then the boys did a newscast over the DGE rule. So the girls did just certain words that they talked about that used TCH, and the boys did DGE, and we'll show that video.
Hello, all you wonderful people out there. Welcome to The Pew. Ladies, I can't wait to share with you audience what an incredible show we have for them today. In today's show, we are learning all about the TCH words. Now, you might be asking, what are TCH words? Let me tell you. They're one-syllable words with a short vowel before the TCH. Lindley, how do you say TCH? Is it t? Martha, don't be silly. The T is silent, and TCH just says ch. What a fascinating rule, and what a spectacular show. We have shown words that have the TCH rule. In our style segment, we will be looking at the newest trend in fashion patches. What? Patches? Yes, patches on our purses. They are all the craze. I know. I carried my patches purse to a red carpet event the other evening, and I got so many compliments. Ladies, in our cooking segment today, I'll be baking a batch of yummy chocolate chip cookies. I'm hungry thinking about it. After all that eating, we'll be lunging into our exercise segment. In this segment, I'll be showing you ladies how to get my good strength after a long workout. Oh my, sir, you are over the top. No one can match those moves. Okay, ladies, we obviously have a great show today. Yes, and it all starts after this commercial break. Reporting from the Fletcher School, just then we have breaking news. Do not, I repeat, do not use the letter J at the end of a word. What? How could this be? I hear the sound J at the end of lots of words. Think about the words dodge, judge, and badge. They all end with the J sound. Why, yes, they do, but do not be fooled by the sound. There are more ways to spell the sound J. If those words don't end with J, how are you supposed to spell them? Wait a minute. Is this another rule that uses the short vowel? Yes, it is. It is official. If you hear the sound J after a short vowel, always use the letters D, G, E. So the words badge, judge, and dodge all end with D, G, E? That's amazing. Yes, they totally end with the letters D, G, E. So do words like fudge, pledge, and fridge. This is unbelievable news. That about
for this section of Sunday night breaking news. Just kids, always remember DGE comes after a short vowel.
Okay, so just the background comes, all we did is put a table, and it looks like their table, but you make sure you kind of scoot it to where it actually looks like their table. But it's, you know, the beauty, okay, we really love our kids so much. These kids we've had and now, but the little girl Limley on the end, like she is definitely on the spectrum, and this was after a lot of takes. That's when you just have to breathe and say, you know what, she was really amazing, because she is the most shy, and so even to look up at the camera and there's no one there was so hard for her, but she was so proud of herself, and her mom and dad were so proud of her. So you just, you know, technology can bring out the beauty of every child, even if it's not their strength. So I just wanted to share that. Keynote is another app, and basically Keynote people use in the business world for presentations, but we like to use it to summarize a story or to retell a story, because it makes clip art animated, so it makes it move. So although it's, like I said, it's intended for a professional world, we've decided to use it in the classroom. But the beauty about it is our third graders are going to know how to give a presentation as an adult, and not a boring one, because they're going to know how to animate everything. So I think that's what's so important, is they're going to be ready as they get older to be in the world of challenging technology. And basically, Christy has, I did it. Christy has a young man, Sebastian, and Sebastian is like an old soul. He is like, you could sit there and he could talk to anybody, especially adults. Like if he could live with an 80-year-old person, they'd be so happy, because he would keep them so entertained. And as a young man, he'll ask you questions. So he goes and gives a real conversation, but he cannot read and he cannot write. And so by using Keynote, it gives him the ability to create what he remembered from his story and animate it, because he's so intelligent. And then that visual helps him to retrieve in memory what that story was about. So I'm going to show you his Keynote presentation, but then I'm going to show you a recording where he had to read a passage in class and then retell. And without that imagery, he could only remember the beginning of the story and the end. So I'm going to show, I clipped on it. I might have to try to clip again, but just quickly, Christy highlighted the only thing he remembered from the story. I don't know if it's going to. It won't let me go. I don't think I can go back, huh? Sorry about that. See, we're not the smartest with technology. Okay.
So basically this boy wanted to own a leopard, so his mom started telling him reasons why he couldn't own a leopard and what would happen, and then he started going against those, and then at the end, he finally didn't want a leopard.
So that was it. But then she allowed him to create a Keynote project, and this is how it went.
Tom ran across the kitchen under Miss Newcomb's feet. "Eek, there's a mouse!" she screamed. Mr. Little went to look for Tom and Uncle Pete, because they had went out looking for the mice traps, because Uncle Pete wanted to see them in his own eyes. Mr. Little got attacked by the cat. So Mr. Little was looking for them, but Tom and Uncle Pete were under the fireplace, and the cat had tried to attack Mr. Little.
So then Lucy came in and jabbed the cat on the tail and scared the cat away. The littles are afraid of the giant cat.
So even there, he read something, but he knew the story, so he knew that word could not be the word he was looking for. So it's just, the type of retelling was completely different from not having the visual, and plus the fact that he created the visual. Also, we like to use iMovie, and Kריsty's going to share a little bit about iMovie. You might want
to Okay, so iMovie is when Janiorari was talking about this talk show and the newscast, we, the teachers, put both of those into iMovie to make the transitions and to make the breaking news sign come up and the ending credits. We did that for them because that wasn't part of their lesson for that assignment. But any grade, iMovie is creating movies, and it is so user-friendly that even first grade and kindergartners can use it. It's just depending on what you want them to do with it, because you just have to scaffold it appropriate for that level. But so if Janiorari and I can do it, anybody can do it. Because our focus is literacy, we just use this to enhance that, and that's it. But there are some really cool transitions. I'm going to show you a video of a Spanish class in high school. So this isn't either one of our classes. What the teacher did is she gave a list of vocabulary words. She did not teach them at all. They had to learn, they had to make a newscast, a script, they had to write it, they had to edit it, they had to practice it, and they had to learn those words in it. The only thing that she helped them with is using the grammar properly and making sure that they were on the right track with how long it was taking them to do that. So it is about some natural disasters. It's about a fall and a rainstorm. There's all kinds of things going in. I had to cut it down because it was too long, but I'm going to show you part of it, and then I'm going to fill you in a little bit more about it.
Bienvenidos a las noticias de Ohio Noticias. Esta noche vamos a reportar sobre el tiempo y otras noticias interesantes. Y ahora introduciendo Weather Manolo.
Gracias, Zach. Hoy en Ohio, una tormenta grande estará pasando por Cleveland. Después de la tormenta, esperamos un huracán muy fuerte. La temperatura alta estará a 50 grados y la temperatura baja estará a 20 grados. Martes, espero lluvia. Predecimos 50 centímetros de lluvia. La temperatura alta será 70 grados y la baja temperatura será 25 grados. Miércoles estará nublado. La temperatura alta será 60 grados y la temperatura baja será 30 grados.
Okay, so it's going to keep going so you can see how the transitions go. But basically, the kids had so much growth from this. This wasn't an end of the unit, like, let's put this all together after we've taught it. They were engaged in learning. The learning came from them. So it's not a teacher saying, look up these words and use them in a sentences. The learning came from them. They had to figure out how to say that word. They're recording themselves, so they have to hear themselves saying it. So they're getting all of those senses while they're doing that. And another thing is our school is we don't teach technology separately. So when the kids are using Keynote, they're building their skills to do presentations like this. When they're using iMovies, they're preparing to create movies and learn how to get their point across in different ways. And we do it at the same time. We don't say you learn this in technology class and then you learn this in literacy class. It all comes together to get deeper meanings. And that's how it stabilizes in their memory. Any connections that they made, they have to make a deep connection and they have to practice it about 500 times to get it, or maybe 600 times. But you can see that they really learned a lot. They learned their words and they learned their technology. So now we're going to kind of switch over to dyscalculia, and that is under the umbrella also. It is trouble with math, trouble remembering math facts, trouble with math concepts. They may not remember that the word 5 is the same thing as the number 5. Greater than, less than is really hard concept. This is very common of kids with dyslexia, but not always. Not just because they have dyslexia, they don't have this. My brother couldn't read, as I said, but he scored very high in math. So it just all depends. This is where you just need to know your kids. So just the same, these facts, struggling understanding concepts, identifying the symbols. A lot of times they will get the symbols wrong, but understand the concept. So they might have 3 minus 5 equals 2, but they wrote it in the wrong order. This is just an example of how we use the multisensory math. They built their shapes with manipulatives in the room. They labeled it. Then they'll take this and they'll put it, this is called pic collage. You can just put a lot of pictures together, and then they'll put it in Explain Everything, our favorite, and record. One thing too, if you don't like Explain Everything, you got to find some way for them to record themselves, because the more that they are recording themselves, they are practicing back and they're reflecting more. And it's really, really important. And I think that we're at a place where we're going to take a little break and play a little game with QR codes.
Okay, so we're going to make you move, stand up if you need to, because it's hard to sit here this long. If not, Kריsty's going to come around. So QR codes. We love using QR codes in the classroom for many reasons. And even though we have this in the math section, we use them in reading, we use them in writing. We use them because they allow our kids to move. Like, you can put a QR code on this wall. You can put a QR code on that wall, and that wall, and that wall, and then they get up and they have to check their answers. So it makes them move. And most importantly, as an educator, it allows us to work independently with other students. So in language class, I will work one-on-one with a child. In order to get that time, my others have to be on task and quiet. And when you have ADD kids, that's really hard. But what they'll do is an activity, and they'll check their work using a QR code. So we are going to let you kind of experience the QR code, although most people have. Kריsty's going to come around. You're going to pull out a piece of paper, and she's going to check to see if you're a winner. And if you're a winner, you get a... Okay. Because time, I'm so sorry. We have more. But if you're a winner, you get a prize. Okay, so while we're waiting to see if they won, Kריsty will tell you if you won. You're a winner. Yay, you get a prize, new car. Okay. Okay, so as she goes around and see who's winning, I'm just going to show you the next image, because no matter what, if a student has a math disability, they have to have manipulatives in the classroom, because those numbers are just nothing to them. And there are so many other things. Yes, another winner. There are so many manipulatives that you can use. In this image, you have 99, but to a dyslexic person, that could be like 66. What does that mean? So a teacher here basically uses popsicle sticks, to put tens together, and then the child basically off to the side put the 9 extra. And then what she did is that she put this image on a QR code so that they did this activity the day before. And then they had to remember what they did the day before, which can be very difficult. So she took these pictures of what they did, put them on a QR code. They opened the image back up, and then they were able to use it again the next day. It's so simple to use QR codes. And in fact, you'd think your kids would really get tired of them, but they don't. They love to just the surprise, right? It is. It's fun. So anyway, we love using them. And even though it's in math, we use them everywhere. Yeah. Because we're worried about time, but we don't want to not share what we know. Okay, the 3D printer. The 3D printer is something that we just purchased in our school, I think maybe last year. So basically, it is a way of manufacturing and making objects. And you build things in 3D parts and layers. So basically, it's a machine, and you can use different materials, but we use plastic. So it layers thinly to create an object, and they go on to apps that allow them to develop their model using measurements, using dimensions, and they build the object themselves. So no longer is that sphere a circle on a flat page. They create the sphere, and they can hold it, and they've learned how to visually create it, mathematically create it, and then there's so much learning that can be done from that. So here's just a couple of pictures of some items that students have made. So they actually get to make their physical items. They're getting a deeper connection. They're being so creative. They're problem solving, because what if you think your object was going to be away and it didn't turn out? So then you have to go back and try again. There's so many different activities you can do. We saw online where a teacher did fractions, and she created the circle, and then she did the half. So the child had to create the circle, then another half, and a fourth. And so much was learned from the fractions, which can be difficult. In language arts, though, we have images for symbolism and understanding the meaning behind an object, and you actually create the object. So it's just a great tool to have, but you have to have the 3D printer in order to use it. And this is just showing the image of a child online building their product and using measurements to be able to build it. And then Kresty actually is showing you her object. GE is spelling for us, so they had to create the G and the E together and create the item. And the beauty of that is that you can have letters in front of that and put it there and try to build the word, and you can be proud that she actually built the GE. And GE is another hardship for our children, because that G is not G, it's Ch, J. Not cha, soft, and that's really hard. So technology just allows you to get the obstacle of learning and do something with it.
Okay, so hyperactive students, we all have them. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is a mouthful, but one thing that I think is really important that we want to talk to is under the umbrella. A lot of kids with dyslexia have it. There's a lot of overlap in all of these. One doesn't necessarily mean you have the other, but there's a lot of myths about ADHD, and one of them is that the child cannot maintain focus. That is true sometimes, but not all the time. Sometimes they can't change their focus. They can hyper-focus and do something that is desirable to them, but they can't focus on the undesirable, which is many of us. And also ADHD, like all of us have a little bit of these characteristics sometimes, but in order to be diagnosed with ADHD, it has to affect your lifestyle. It has to be more, you have to have these characteristics more than your peers. It has to affect your job, your relationships, your academics. So all of us, will not be able to focus at times, but this is more than that. And another myth is about bad parenting, that it is something that is just bad parenting. That is not true. Half my family has ADHD, and you want to come to our family gatherings because they are fun and lively and impulsive and hyper. But it isn't, you can't grow out of it. It's not a result of bad parenting. Some of the characteristics are listed up here. Inattention is one of them, but like I said, the ability to change, to have that cognitive flexibility to change your focus. My dad is very hyper, very impulsive, but he was very successful in computer frameworks because he can hyper focus for hours on specific, precise details. Now, if you yell fire while he's hyper focused, he won't hear you. He'll forget to eat, things like that. So there's that cognitive flexibility that is the struggle. And so that's what you want to work on and help them with. And we're going to give you some ideas for that. But first, the impulsivity. This little guy in the picture, he just defines ADHD. That's why he's not sitting in a chair, because we have to provide movement and get him out of his seat throughout the day. But he is so sweet, so tender-hearted, so eager to please. Yet if he is in the bathroom, he will be swinging on the stalls. Or in the cafeteria, he'll be the one to throw the water bottle, a full water bottle, into the trash can over there and be so sorry. I'm so sorry that I did that, and so regretful that you just got in trouble again for that, and then go right back and do it. It's an impulsive thing. It's not his heart or ill will. He doesn't mean to. He's not thinking before he makes an action. And so that's kind of what we're talking about, some activities to do that. And I'm going to make Jane go fast.
So I use Kahoot a lot in my classroom. It's a game. We wanted to try it, but we're running out of time, and we didn't know for sure how it would look. But it is basically a game online, and you can put anything you want in there, and it has music like a game, and the kids are in the classroom, so we use it. There's so many options. You can use it in math. You can use it in reading and writing. And so they're competing against each other, and they show the points of each student. But I'm going to go to the next page and just kind of show you. So on the bottom slide is what it looks like for you. You will put a question at the top. You can find an image online if you want to. And then you have answer choices, and you put in the answer, and then you'll check one as being right. And then you can go in and put as many questions as you want. When it shows up, it looks like the colorful image for your kids. So it'll give the question, whatever image you have, and they have to pick the right answer. And then the music plays, and so you're like stressed out about doing the right answer, and they're excited. And so they're up out of their seats. And you'd think that this would be so disorganized and they'd be out of control, but they're not. They're very intense, and they want to get it right, and they're just moving their bodies, and we use it a lot, and they don't ever get tired of using it. So you can actually go online. We wanted to try to do one in here, but you can go online and it'll show you what it looks like, but the kids really love it. And then also Google Classroom is a great tool for our kids. It's not necessarily just for ADD, but you as a teacher, you are basically become paperless at times. Instead of, the ADD kid cannot remember their homework. They did it, but they cannot find it. And they'll tell you, Miss Reed, I know I did it. Like, I can tell you the answers. And then well, you don't have the sheet. But then in Google Classroom, you can put your homework in there, they do it, and they don't have to worry about that piece of paper. So, is it about the paper, or is it about the knowledge that they're learning? And you have to ask those questions, and we're in a society today that it might not have to be about the paper anymore. And they're still organized because you still have to create files and put it in your laptop. But, you kind of have to question that. And when a child's so defeated all the time, you really have to question what is it that you're doing that might be wrong to help that child. But you can record yourself, and we have sometimes what we call like flipping classrooms. I totally went blank with the word that you use for basically, when you go to school in America, you have a lecture, somebody speaking in upper grades, and you have to write notes. But now you can video yourself. So the concept is taught at home for homework, and the next day you get to apply the homework in the classroom. So it allows you to do that, which is more important to see what the child's doing than you maybe speaking the whole time. So Classroom, Google Classroom just allows you to become paperless and to help that child that might struggle keeping organized. And there's so much you can do, but those are, I think, the good key aspects of it. And Kריsty's going to talk quickly. We are going to go quick about Apple Classroom.
So Google Classroom, you're giving your kids assignments. Apple Classroom, completely different. A lot of people get them confused. They're nothing alike. Our school, everybody has an Apple TV, a projector, and a device. So when you have, every kid has a device, they're behind screens all the time. You can't see what they're doing. They could be checking their email. They can be looking at pictures of their puppy dog. They can be doing a lot of things that they're not supposed to be doing. Apple Classroom allows me to see their screens and see exactly what they're doing. So here, this first one is just how I've made my classes. So I have access to all the third grade screens, but I only want to see my class, a couple kids at a time. This slide, there's a lot of options at the top. You can kind of see the names at the bottom. You can put their pictures there if you want to. The first option that you have is to add. So they put in a code, and that's how you build your class. The next one is open and navigate. Those two things are pretty much the same. I can, from my iPad, I would be able to, if we were all set up on Classroom here, I would be able to open up, explain everything on everyone's device and at the same time, so they don't have to find it. Navigate is the same thing with the website. It's really difficult for them to find a website and to have to type in a long address, and bad things can come up that you don't want them to see if they mess up, so you can just send that straight to them. Locking is my favorite part because you can lock them into an app and they can't get out of it. So they can't get off task. They have to stay in there. But equally fun is to lock them out of everything. So a lot of times I'll be giving directions, and little impulsive ADD Johnny will be tapping all over his iPad and messing up what I've gave him and just lock it down. And I don't have to say, Johnny, put your hands on your knees. Johnny, don't touch the iPad. Johnny, Johnny, Johnny. I don't have to say his name 500 times because I just locked him out. And it gives a visual lock. So he sees that and he's like, uh-oh, I'm not paying attention, and I can look up here. So it's just a visual, silent, get back on task. It's not good when you accidentally lock down the class beside of you, and then you can hear them all saying, hey, we locked out our iPads, because our classrooms are really small because we only have 6 kids, so that happens sometimes on accident. Here is just an example of all of my kids being on a coding app. There are different apps, and I can see exactly what they are doing. And then you can tap, these are the same options, but just for one kid. So if I don't want to send it to the whole class, I can individualize that also. Sorry, I'm going to go really fast because we want to have time for questions if you guys have that. Reducing anxiety is really important. We didn't put anxiety underneath the umbrella, but learning disabilities cause that. And you'd never know, like, which comes first, the chicken or the egg, the anxiety, or is a disability causing the anxiety? But either way, they have it. And there's a lot of built-in features like calendar, notes, reminders, the timer. In the alarm, the timers go up. The stopwatch goes up and counts time, but the timer goes down. We use them both. My kids were complaining about, like, oh, you're making us read too much. And my kids are in 3rd grade, and they read on a 1st grade level. So I'm like, how long is too much? And I was like, did you time yourself to see how long that was? Because when I did mine, it was 8 minutes. So maybe it took you 10 or 12 minutes to read this. And so I made them time it, and it wasn't that long after all, we figured out. And so then I was like, we need to get ready, we need to build more stamina in our reading. So if you're reading for 10 minutes and that feels long, we need to stretch you to make that 12 or 15. And so they did not like that. But anyways, they told me, they set their timer and they read for 10 minutes and then they took a break and then they came back and their iPad told them when they need to come back to finish their homework. So it relieved some stress from them. Now January is going to talk about a couple more apps that relieve stress.
Okay. So we do have videos, but we're going to pass it. It's my daughter showing how she uses the apps, but you can go online and there's tons of tutorials. But she really likes to use Evernote, and there's so many different. There's OneNote, there's Notes on Apple, but these are just ways to organize the notes that you have to take in class. And you can basically record your teacher, keep it in notes. You can take PowerPoints that they have, and you can handwrite and actually put that in notes. It's just a way of organizing all your options. And it also has a text-to-speech that if you record it, it will put it into text-to-speech. But you can also do that on your iPad. But there's so many options, and the beauty of it is you can get almost anything off the internet and be able to organize it into Evernote. But again, there are so many different ways of using Evernote, whether you're in college or high school. I mean, in elementary school, you don't have to use it so much. But it's just one video where she has a story, and she clipped it and cut parts of it out and put it into her notes. And the beauty about Evernote is if you cut something and there's a keyword, it will automatically file it under that keyword. So if you maybe don't remember what you were supposed to do, you could just put the keyword in and everything will show up. So it's just really helpful. And then her other favorite is Wonderlist. So Mackenzie she's very organized, but she needs reminders. It's such a simple app. All you do is every week she puts in all the activities that she has. And the beauty is she has her laptop open in class, and it will scroll and ding reminder of what needs to be done. It will also remind you on your phone. I mean, adults use this. You can use it for almost anything, but she categorizes everything on her subjects in class. Then she also plays basketball and volleyball, and she puts her schedules in there. And so then she can look, oh no, I have a game on Tuesday night and I have to study for 3 tests. So she can then organize when she's supposed to study because it's just an instant reminder. It's a very simple tool. She likes it much better than a calendar, because a calendar is way too anxiety driven because it shows day 1 to 30, and we color coded it so she could see basketball and homework, and then she just said, oh my goodness, I have way too much to do. She stresses out. So this is just a daily reminder, and then it's over. But it's a really great tool as well for kids that struggle with anxiety and organization and need reminders. And that's a video, but we're not going to watch it. And then finally, we'd like to share FNN news. We'll go quickly in case any of you have any questions.
Okay, so our kids, I don't know if you guys do this in your schools here, but we have these morning announcements that the older kids, they call over the intercom and they kind of connect the different grade levels and talk about the weather and what's going on in different grade levels. So our kids were getting really bored with that. So they didn't want to listen to it over the intercom. So they wanted to make it like a real newscast. And we've already showed you some of those, but I wanted to show you kind of behind the scenes of the kids really doing it. We made our newscast. January and I did most of the work for that, and they focused on the skill. This one, the older kids, middle school and high school kids are doing everything. They do all of it. The teachers support them, but they use Wirecast as their software for building a network, and they are recording live to the school every morning, and the parents can watch it too. So it's for the parents and the students, and it is live. So this is kind of a picture of the green screen room again, and the Fletcher network and the kids working together. We have iographers where they can put their script on the iPad and read that. We have professional lighting and their professional microphones, and the collaboration that they do is very, very high level and intense. And this just shows like some of the planning that they've done. And this one is really cool because they have now got sophisticated enough where one group of kids is in the courtyard, the other's in the green screen, another's upstairs in the 5th grade hallway, and they are going back and forth in live production and managing all of that. So it's just a really great thing. This is a very short clip of just watching the kids, how they prepare for some of that. To be so valuable for the kids. Again, we don't teach technology separately. We teach them digital citizenship, how to use the technology in real world purposes. So we have really found this to just be great. We have one more slide for you.
Okay, we just have a quote, and I don't know if you know, but Albert Einstein was dyslexic. He definitely had a learning disability, and he was not perfect in the classroom, I'm sure of that. But it says everybody's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it's stupid. And so I think, you know, I actually was supposed to speak in the other room at the same time as this with, I showed images and film of my daughter. So we've never, ever, ever in our family ever said that it's a shame and that she's stupid. So she's never felt that way. And the beauty of our school is our kids don't feel that way. They feel so smart. And in fact, she was probably at the lowest reading level one year. And I'm like, well, how are you doing? She's like, I'm the smartest one in class. I'm like, oh, okay. So we just, you know, our passion is those kids that are not liked, or maybe people are frustrated with them in the classroom. But we want them to be the best that they can be, and we feel like using multisensory education with technology brings out the best in every child. So again, it's such a pleasure to be here. This is our email addresses. So you can email us with questions too. You know, maybe you've tried something and it's not working for you. It doesn't always work the first time, but please don't give up on it. And the beauty is, even when I sometimes don't get it right, my kids are like, oh, I'll figure it out for you, Miss Reed. So they are so savvy with technology. But if you have any questions, we would love to answer them. And it's been such a pleasure to be here. And thank you for being here. Does anyone have questions? And I guess if you have a question, I think he said to press the button so that we could hear it on the microphone, and then it'll automatically turn off. But if you don't, that's okay. Thank you. Questions? All right. Thank you so much. Thank you.